You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more.
Well, what I mean, this is your boy Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today, we talking to a legend in the industry. They got some dope work out right now. The person I want to speak to today, he's an author, a graphic novelist, a screenwriter, a video game designer. He is best known as the creator of the Prince of Persia. Wherever. Let me introduce this legend. They got a dope project through Magnetic Press out right now on Kickstarter. I mean, it's making it rain, and we got a couple of days left. So, we need your support to make sure that it gets even higher and higher. Let me introduce the boss, the legend, the one, the only Jordan Mechner. How you doing, baby?
Hey, Al.
You're like, Jesus Christ, this guy's energy. All right. So, how you doing, brother? Thanks for hanging out with me today and talking about, your journey, this dope project and everything. I've gotten through a part of it. Let me tell you, there was some stuff there that there was a particular line. I haven't finished the book yet, but there was a line there, that kind of a religious line, but it hit hard, man. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I was like, yeah, bro, damn, bro, why are you doing this to me? Lately, I've been kind of picking up on things. Like, all right, I don't know. It's being directed at me. Energy is weird. You never know. So with that, Big Jordan, before we get into anything, very important here, your origin. All right, so let us know where you're originally from, and most importantly to us out here, just to get to know where you're coming from. What was the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Great question. Well, I'm from New York, and I'm right here, and I'm speaking to you from Brooklyn right now. I'm visiting my brother
Brooklyn.
here.
I grew up in Greenpoint.
Yeah, Fort Greene.
I bet. There we go.
Yeah. So I actually grew up in Chappaqua, which is about an hour north. Went to Horace Greeley High School, and that's where I really discovered comics. And at that time, this was in the 70s, it was Mad Magazine.
All right. I was a big fan of Mad. Again, my mama was buying me stuff I shouldn't have been reading, but hey, that's what it is.
Yeah. I was reading a lot of stuff, with the indie comics of the 70s, a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been reading, but Mad really spoke to me. And I think, like, if I hadn't been exactly the age I was, like when the Apple II computer and video games started with Space Invaders, like in 1978, I was 13 years old. If I'd been a little younger or older, I might not have gotten into that. But as it was, I just got captivated by computer games, video games, programming. But until then, I was all about comics. I was writing and drawing comics as a kid. And yeah.
Dope. All right. So were you alone in your geekdom back then, or did you have kind of a tribe?
Well, I had a best friend who lived in the city, in Manhattan. So I would take the train into the city, and we would, I was like 9. We were both about 9, 10 years old.
I ask you here, when you were taking the trains, were these the double letter trains, or they were already single letter at that time?
Oh, it was the Metro North, it was the train.
Remember. Right. In New York, there used to be double letters, double G, double F, double R.
Oh, yeah. No, this was the above ground train to Grand Central Station. And so we would go to the Village, to St. Mark's Place comics shop, and we would see movies, the double feature, and I would just sit there browsing through all the comics racks until they kicked us out. That was my childhood.
Oh, listen, that store, I didn't have good experiences either, let me tell you. And we got to spending time there. So that's why I love, staying back home in Brooklyn and Queens shops, like Continental Comics back in Queens, the old Mike Carbonaro shop before he started doing the cons, good stuff. Anyway, so Jordan, let's start getting into this, brother. Here you are, you're a geek from New York, you're a comic book kid, and all of a sudden, you actually a couple years back, you came up with this dope game concept. Start sharing a little bit about your inspirations and entering the world of game design or even storytelling. Like, what came first?
Yeah, well, okay, we're going back to 1978, which was the year of Space Invaders, and it was also the year that I got my first Apple II computer. So what was cool for me as a kid was that, well, first of all, I could play Space Invaders at home on my Apple II, and it was almost as good as the arcade version, but I didn't have to like keep spending those rolls of quarters and
I have somebody trying to
losing all my money.
I'm nuts. I hate that, yo.
Yeah. So, but also it wasn't, I just could play games, I could program my own games. So my first games were in BASIC, very simple. But over the next few years, like as I got into high school, I learned assembly language programming, high-res graphics, and I started to program my own arcade-style games. So my first games were really very much in the vein of Space Invaders and Asteroids. You got a spaceship and you're shooting at little space rocks or whatever to try to get a high score. And at a certain point, the industry evolved a bit, and games started to have the potential to become something a little different from the arcade versions. And so I started to make a game which had human characters and smooth animation. And the first game that I published was called Karateka. It was a karate fighting.
Oh my God, dude, I have the Atari cartridge for the 7800.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Oh.
Yeah, that was my first published game,
Really, so I got it. So we'll talk at the end where you're gonna be, because I'm gonna have to take this cartridge with me, and I wanted to sign it because I still got the OG.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, yo!
Awesome.
Thank you for doing that. That definitely changed for me, because back in the day, all right, I mean, so in my experience, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's like, bro, what you said there. When I got that for the 7800, it was my first fighter game experience.
Yeah.
So on that level, you just are like, yo. This is so cool. It's so different, And I remember it was a joystick with the two buttons on the side, on either side. So really cool, bro. Thank you. That's so dope, bro. What even inspired that? Were you a fan of the kung fu movies back in the days? The New York guy. You what was it? The 3:00 Showtime back on Fox.
Yeah, I mean, there were the Bruce Lee movies, and then I was actually in college at this time, so I was also seeing like Kurosawa Japanese samurai movies, and that kind of gave me the idea for the medieval Japanese setting with the castle and the warlord, Mount Fuji in the background. A lot of influences went into that.
Oh, bro, I am so digging this. Yeah. All right, so reflecting on that early career, how do you think then creating a Prince of Persia influenced your approach then? Like, you're going from this Karateka, this more one. Now you create this song, like, wow. I mean, that obviously an amazing franchise.
Yeah. I mean, Prince of Persia really started as like the next game I did after Karateka. It was kind of the evolution. And I used the same filmed live action rotoscope technique. This time I videotaped my brother David, who was 15 years old at the time, in the parking lot across the street from our high school. So I had him run and jump and climb and do all the things that the little animated character would need to do in the game. And then with the tools of the time, kind of frame by frame, pixel by pixel, rotoscoped that footage to make the animation for the game, which became Prince of Persia.
Yeah, all right. You're talking all this. You have this equipment. I mean, was this something you bought yourself, or was your family supportive in your creative endeavors?
There wasn't. That's sort of the beauty of making games at that time. You didn't need a lot of equipment. The computer that I programmed on was the same computer that we used to play the games. We didn't really have like development systems and teams the way that we did now. So for Prince of Persia, I used VHS. Actually, well, to be honest, I bought a VHS camera using a credit card, and then when I was done, I mailed it back under the 30-day guarantee because I didn't have enough money to actually buy one of those things. Yeah, but back
then they were expensive. I still have one of those VHS cameras, and in the archive. I can't wait to get a shelf to kind of showcase some old cameras. You guys are gonna be surprised and stuff like that. I even got an old
but it was really it was really a handmade kind of jerry-rigged process. I actually used a 35mm film camera to take pictures off, freeze frame and then take a picture of the screen and then frame advance. And I got back a roll of film from the photomat with all of the frames of animation, which I then laid out on a table. It's, because the computers at that time didn't have video. There was nothing like digitized video.
You're going to confuse a younger audience here. So what is a photomat? Let them know that process. Let them know how easy they have it now in the world of digital as opposed to back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. They've seen movies, so they know that we had cameras where you had to like take a roll of film and load it into the camera, and then you took it out and you had to take it to be developed. All that good stuff.
We had somebody that did your move. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so here you are, you're doing gaming and all. So how did that transition, this whole gaming storyline, everything you're doing, from video games to graphic novels and comics? Like, how was that transition? What inspired that?
Well, it's been a really interesting journey. I mean, as I mentioned, like I always loved comics and graphic novels, but then I kind of put that on hold for about 30 years while I was making games and then writing movie screenplays. So Prince of Persia evolved like over a few decades from the first 2D Prince of Persia to then the next generation, which was with Ubisoft in Montreal, The Sands of Time. That was like the PlayStation 2 generation. And that took Prince of Persia into 3D, the vertical dimension, this idea of a dagger that could rewind time. And out of that came the movie. I wrote the screenplay for the first, for the Disney Jerry Bruckheimer movie.
So talk about
Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time.
How did you feel about that? I mean, were you aware of even how to write the movie? Is it similar?
Yeah, I mean, I always loved movies. Alongside making these games, I was a film buff. I was seeing, I was going to the movies. I was studying screenwriting and kind of like torn as to, did I want to keep making games or did I want to become a screenwriter and a filmmaker? So I actually went to film school and I learned how to shoot and edit 16 millimeter film. I made some documentaries. I wrote screenplays, which didn't get produced. And I was doing that while I was making Prince of Persia. And then I did a game called The Last Express, which was kind of like an interactive animated comic book or animated movie because we used live actors. So we did a film shoot with actors in crazy costumes with lines drawn on them and makeup and wigs that were all designed to be rotoscoped so that when we ran this digital process on the film footage, it would look like a kind of a pen and ink animated Art Nouveau, but really like a graphic novel come to life. And one of the inspirations for that was the European tradition of graphic novels, which I discovered in the 90s, which was different from the comics that I had known growing up. That, there was Hugo Pratt with Corto Maltese, there was Moebius, there was Jacques Tardy. Just this whole, in France, like graphic novels are different. Everybody like has got a shelf full of these sort of thin hardcover volumes of graphic novels, and it's just amazing. So that was a big inspiration for Last Express, and I think that's when
How did you even find the foreign comics? When did you find? What was the first one you found?
I think Corto Maltese, the Ballad of the Salty Sea, La Ballade de la Mer Salée, was one of the first that I read. And it was because I spent a year in Paris right after making Prince of Persia. I was kind of like, look, I've spent the last 10 years of my life staring at an Apple II computer screen. I want to travel. I want to have adventures, learn foreign languages. And so I went to Paris, and my French friends introduced me to these European graphic novels, and I just fell in love with that. So that was a big inspiration, both for the story and the visual look of The Last Express.
Gotcha. So moving on from The Last Express, because you showed me 2 books in the pregame, right? So before we get into the current one, show me that other book you did over here. Bring that on screen right now.
Okay. Well, so this is the Monte Cristo that we'll be talking about in a minute. This is the French edition. See how it's like really thin and big format. So this is like French.
Wait a minute, let me get to you. Look at that. Is some shelf porn, folks. Look at that. Look at those colors.
Yeah.
Look at that art.
Yeah, I mean, they're beautifully printed. They're large format, and so this
and
is.
I like the red interior of the book too. Makes it look sexy, like red bottom shoes.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so this is my recent. This is the first graphic novel that I've drawn, as well as written. So this is a kind of a different style. This is I mean, here I drew all of these pages, so it's very much of a sort of more of an indie graphic novel. It's an autobiographical book. So this tells the story of my career making games and movies, but it also tells the story of 3 generations of my family.
Show that spine off too. Let's see that spine.
Yeah.
Look at the girth on that. Yeah, that is some shelf porn right there. Love that.
Yeah.
Dude,
wait. For Prince of Persia fans, under the back cover here, you can maybe recognize that little sprite. There.
Oh, check that out.
Then,
hey!
Yeah.
Fire, dude. Check that. So, all right, so talk the inspiration behind that before we get into the next book, the one that's out.
Yeah. So we're jumping forward now, but starting with The Last Express and then the Sands of Time, the Prince of Persia movie, I became more of a writer and a screenwriter. And so filmmaking, screenwriting, video games, which had been completely separate pursuits up until then, kind of started to converge. And they converged in a way with the Prince of Persia movie, which I was the first screenwriter for. That was a movie that had been inspired by a video game that went back to the Apple II. And out of that came my first gig as a graphic novel writer. Disney proposed that I write an anthology graphic novel prequel to the movie. And so that was, Todd McFarlane did the cover, worked with a great group of artists.
Wow,
and I wrote that. And
oh, snap.
Yeah. And then also First Second Books, who are, they're the publisher of my latest book, Replay. Yeah, First Second. First Second was a new imprint at that time. And so we did a version of Prince of Persia, a Prince of Persia graphic novel there. And then I wrote my first original graphic novel, which was called Templar. It's kind of an Ocean's 11, a heist set in the 14th century about the Knights Templar, very much in the spirit of Alexandre Dumas, who is, of course, an author that I've always loved. So that was my kind of transition from film into graphic novels. And after that, I kept writing graphic novels more and more. Monte Cristo, of course, with the great Mario Alberti is the latest. And all of this kind of gave me the desire to draw as well as write. So Replay, is the first one that I've, this is my debut as a graphic novel artist. But I continue to work as a graphic novel scriptwriter, doing wonderful projects like Monte Cristo. So
right before we get Monte, let me ask you on that Replay, being that you did, this is all you, a project, all JM. How long did that project take, artistically writing and writing?
I mean, Replay is really different from anything else I've done because it's so personal. I mean, it's the story of my family. It's the story of the people that I know the best. So, and I wanted, I sketch from life. That's kind of how I learned to draw. And, I stopped drawing as a kid and then I started up again about 15 years ago. And the way that I practice drawing is I carry around a sketchbook, like a kind of a moleskin. Here, I can show you, this kind of,
I love those notebooks.
Yeah. And so I draw people around me, like in cafes, airports, Comic Cons, wherever I happen to be, and so that was kind of the training, and to actually draw and write this story was maybe 2.5 years from start to finish. Wow. But really, like I did almost nothing else, because if you think, 6 panels per page, 300 pages, that's like almost like 1,500 individual drawings, and each one is a drawing. So yeah, they took takes.
Are your hands all right? You're not cramped up yet? Geez, amazing. All right, so now we're gonna start talking about the latest project. But before we do that, all right, I mean, it is on Kickstarter. So let me show off the trailer. I got a dope PowerPoint with some dope art to run through. We're gonna talk about this fire project and more in a moment. my folks. I mean, what? Doesn't that look dope? Amazing looking project. Let me bring up this PowerPoint, and now we're going to start asking some questions here. Because with this new project, Monte Cristo, what aspects of the original story by Alexandre Dumas were you most drawn to adapt?
I live in France now, and I was actually in Europe on a train rereading the original Monte Cristo, which is, of course, set in the 19th century. It's this classic adventure story that generations have grown up on, and his story was set in the Napoleonic era. But when I read it, it just struck me how perfectly this fit, the time that I had recently lived through, which was post 9/11 America, because we had I'm from New York, and I remember like the feeling, like sort of the fear that everybody had, and then the war in Iraq, and this, in the context of the war on terror, there were these secret prisons. There was the whole, this idea that civil liberties could be suspended, in a time of great danger, so that people could be kind of arrested and
for the greater good, right?
For the greater good, yeah. That there wasn't time for like a proper trial and charges, and that's exactly what Monte Cristo was about. The idea that an innocent person, could be kind of gotten rid of by powerful people who are twisting the situation to serve their own interests, to protect themselves. Of course, in Dumas' time, it was the return of Napoleon that everybody was afraid of. But in my time, it was Al-Qaeda. So once that clicked, I started thinking, could Monte Cristo work today, like to do the whole story? And I read it like through this lens of all the characters, those three wonderful villains, the love interest, this story of like an innocent young man who's got everything going for him. He's engaged to his childhood sweetheart. They're going to get married. He's been promoted at work. Everything is great. And then suddenly he's just like whisked off and disappears for 15 years. It just fits so well. And the more I developed it, the more I was like, this is really going to work. It's a way to tell a story that's a great adventure story. It's a revenge story, which I love. It starts out with this injustice, and then the last 2/3 of the story is about how he takes his revenge on the people who deprived him of
his youth and his love. I cannot wait, because there's a particular line, as I said. I mean, again, look how gorgeous this book is. Look at the panels. And then again, this is not a quick read like most comic books, and that's what I appreciate. You're definitely getting a bang for your buck right here. Like, you're getting characterization, you're getting story. And there was that particular line. I said, God tests those he loves the most. I said, oh my God, that I thought to myself that I must be on a goddamn pedestal right now. Smokes, because it hit hard. Thank you for that line. It kind of smacked me in the face real quick. Like, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna keep the faith and trust.
Yeah. As you said, it's a very dense story. It's got multiple storylines, a big cast of characters, and the characters are, they're not like black and white. Like, even the villains, even though like what they do is terrible, like they have human reasons. Like one wants to protect his family, and that's life, right? The people who do terrible things in their minds, like, they find a way to justify it. And then the terrible impact on other people and the way that plays out over a long period of time. It's also a story that spans 15 years, because the young hero, Sam Castillo, gets, he disappears in 2005. He goes to this offshore prison on this island off the Horn of Africa. And then he comes back in the present day, 17 years later, and he's transformed. He's changed his identity. He's got this new persona as this mysterious billionaire oligarch CEO of the Monte Cristo Corporation. And so when the people who got rid of him 17 years ago meet him, they don't know it's him. They just think, oh, here's like a rich Eastern European guy. And so they suck up to him because he's got money. Everybody wants to be his friend. And so he starts to manipulate these people like chess pieces. And so watching that play out.
Jordan, I can't wait to see this as a video game or a movie, because this sounds crazy. I mean, look at it. Talk about your artistic member here too, drawing. Because how did you build this team? Like, what came first? Was it this story and you navigated for an artist, or you went to a publisher? They help you. Like, how did this even come to be? Because this artistry, it is so cinematic. It is gorgeous, and the coloring. It changes. It sets moods. You put me through this emotional ride through the words and again through the art and the coloring. Like, talk to me about building the team to build such a gorgeous book through Magnetic Press.
Yeah. Well, Mario Alberti what an incredible gift to work with an artist like that. And it actually took a couple of years. So I developed the story. I pitched it to a publisher in France, Comics Bureau, and I live in Montpellier, France, and those are, it's an imprint of Glénat, French publisher. So I wrote the script, and then we looked for an artist who would do it. And it took a couple of years to find the right artist. And then Mario had to finish the book that he was on, so we had to wait for him to be available. But once he was on, he just put himself into it, heart and soul. And as you can see, like the detail, the cinematic, dynamic layouts of the pages.
I mean, look at that. Nighttime, daytime. I mean, look at that difference in artistry, the vibrancy of colors. So you see that change, that difference. You know where you're at. You can almost smell, where you're at and feel the heat.
Yeah, and Mario, like me, like he loves to do research, and like he's not going to just draw any generic car or some, every location in the book, and this is a book that jumps, it goes from Croatia to Washington, D.C., New York, the south of France, to this island prison, in the Gulf of Oman. For every place Mario looked at references and characters, how they should be dressed, what boat, what helicopter, what car they should drive, and all that detail is it's communicating on a second level along with the dialogue. It's just enriching our feeling of the world, and it's something, as you said, it's cinematic, and his page layouts are also dynamic. They it never gets talky. You don't have those kind of things where you're just reading talk. It's happening visually as well.
I mean, exactly. This page is a perfect example. I mean, you understand what's going on. Like your letterer is amazing because you can almost hear it.
Yeah.
Now you picture it so well because of the artistry and all that. What's popping, and again, the way that the layout is broken on here. What do you have here? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels. I mean, gorgeously laid out. I mean, the top two, I could see it in those long wide angle lenses back in the Western cowboy type of view. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you can see, and then this that down in the, sorry, which one are we?
Which one?
And the bottom panel here, where you see Sam is in his cell, after a year in prison, he's scratching away at the floor, and on the wall in the distance, you see that he's written on the wall, "Remember." He wrote that to remind himself. And then here on the next page, it's we see his fiancée Abby back in the small town in Connecticut, and this is the moment when she kind of gives up on him. Like, he disappeared. He was arrested 3 years ago, and she hasn't been able to find anything out. And now she looks at this photograph of the two of them as she's packing up the effects of her grandmother, who's just who's been in a nursing home. And so now her grandmother has died, and she's packing up, and in there is the photograph of the two of them. And then in this panel in the bottom, Mario drew these leaves, and there's this one, it's turning to autumn, and there's a leaf that's, just blowing through the air. And then you realize, just from, without even a word being spoken, that Abby is going to move on, and she's going to marry this other guy who's been wanting to marry her, who's one of who's her friend, who actually sent Sam to prison. He actually made the call and turned him into the FBI, and got the rival for her love out of the way. And Abby doesn't know that him
ghost
did that.
That's crazy. Like, mother, I hope he guess what's coming to him. I cannot wait.
Oh yeah.
You told me this. Oh, I hope this MF forgets what's coming to him. Oh my God. I love it. That's what seems to be in the drama in the story, folks. Don't you love it? I mean, my man Jordan know how to build a story. I mean, this is a gorgeous book, folks. Yeah, listen, this is not just it right here. I want to show you more. And again, look at this. This is where you got to check out Jordan. That's the socialist website. Also below, and check out my big homie at DHPR. But now I'm going to bring up that Kickstarter. Guess what, folks? We have a couple of hours left. Right now, we got 4 hours to go. And let me just refresh, because when I shared it, it was at 79,000. Right now, it is at 81,000. Look at that. Going on up. A big salute to you 1,600 backers. Thank you for supporting amazing independent comic books. And there we go. I mean, oh man, look at these books. The making of you got development series, bonus items, the intro. I mean, look at all this stuff. So, folks, I just want you to know you can get started at a price of just $1. I mean, it's because you want to be generous. But when you want to start getting some goodies, we're starting with digital copies at 15, gonna come to you through September. And when you want those premium hardcovers, because that's what you want. I mean, Jordan, bring that. Is the American version going to be the same as the French version, or is it going to be thicker, American size? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so the French edition is published as 3 separate volumes. It's a trilogy, and each one is 70 pages. Ooh. So the English edition is going to be one single graphic novel with all 3 volumes. So it'll be about 220 pages.
Oh.
It's all 3 of the original, plus a few like extra pages, bonus pages at the end with Mario's, art and so forth.
So is it going to be the size of the fatty you had earlier, or is it going to be in this European size?
Yeah, compared to this, it'll be in between the two. It'll be, it'll be in between these two.
Nice.
And
okay.
It'll be like 3 times the thickness of this one. So not quite as thick as this. 220 pages. This one's 320.
Love it, love it. All right, this story was so good. Can't wait to share it with my brothers, so they won't be here in time for them to be waiting from Denmark this summer. Yeah, there we go. You got a fan over here with Army Boy, let me tell you. But again, you see, folks, some images I didn't share, beautiful. You could check out a preview on this Kickstarter. I mean, you could check out his team. Oh, I mean, look at this image right here. That's gangster, bro.
Yeah, that's his journey when he escapes from prison. He goes on a kind of a migrant journey through like the desert of Oman to end up in Dubai. That's actually one of the things that when Mario set out to draw it, he actually really went online and like looked at, news stories and videos to see, like, because there's a lot of documentation about what people who are trying to journey, from out of these war-torn areas to get to the West, which is what Sam Castillo does in the story. But he's not the only one. So by doing the research and making that real, like he's drawn this 2-page spread or 4-page spread that's actually really moving because it kind of expands the story into this, there's a truth behind it.
Which is,
you feel like the details, the reality.
I'm telling you, I want to get this man draw G.I. Joe too, because if he could draw army and war scenes like this, I can't imagine him on other stuff. I mean, look at this book, folks. Oh my God. I mean, yes. Female hardcover. You got a limited edition. I mean, you got this one. So this is the regular cover, right?
Yeah, that's.
And then what is this? That looks so, dude, red foil. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's the Monte Cristo logo. So in our version, Sam Castillo becomes the CEO of the Monte Cristo Corporation, which is actually a shell corporation that just has billions and billions in offshore assets. And so when he inherits this, for reasons I won't spoil, but as a result of his captivity in prison, he gets this. He gets the bank codes to. This is the logo of the Monte Cristo Corporation. So we've put that, it's through the book. It's on his helicopter. It's on the side of his skyscraper. And in these Kickstarter bonuses, it's on a metal stamped bookmark.
Oh,
yeah, there you can see it, the metallic bookmark. Yeah.
And we got a notebook too with a little small pencil.
Yeah. That's the executive revenge. Yeah.
And it's the big shout out to Mark Lynn. He says the story sounds compelling and the artwork we have been exposed to is absolutely amazing. Wherever. There we go. If you love it, go ahead, Mark, and support it. The link is right there. Because again, look at the gorgeousness of this book. I mean, when he starts unlocking stuff, and again, let me show you real quick, folks. We're at 81,071 now. Hey, it keeps going up, Mark. Hey, I love it. As we go live, this number keeps going on. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you guys for supporting independent comic books. But I mean, look at all these different things you get. The Revenge Bundle, that's the one we just spoke about, for $69. I mean, you got the dope book exclusive. You got what? Look at this. Look at it, and the digi, so that you don't even have to, put fingerprints on that one and just leave it as some shelf porn, as I love to call it. Then you got the Mechner Diaries bundle. What is here? Jeez, look at this.
Yeah, so for someone who's interested in video game development of the 80s, those are actually the journals that I kept while I was making Karateka and Prince of Persia that we were just talking about, with the rotoscoping and the Super 8 film and the video. That's the journal that I kept day to day, documenting the making of those games. So this is a special edition of those journals that Magnetic Press is doing, for the book.
And Mark said he supported it as soon as it began, the stream began. Thank you, Mark, for supporting. We appreciate you so much for supporting independent and supporting my man Jordan here, because this is, of course, this book. Then you got the Mario Alberti bundles. Man. Hey, I mean, whoa, look at this. Hey, some goodies here. That only 68 left of 100, so people are diving. You got the complete executive bundle, make you feel like a boss. This is the boss level right here, huh?
That's everything.
I love it. And then you had that 1 day sale wow, look at that, 290 backers and all gone.
That was the first day, yeah.
Yo, beautiful. 150 backers on day one. But folks, make it happen, and we keep making it happen. This is amazing. Yeah, they goes, God, oh my God, Karateka. I gotta read this book, yo. I must. I have the cartridge. Let's talk about that. Are you gonna, being that you're in the comic game now, and it is con season and all, are you gonna be doing any appearances anywhere where you could hang out, meet you in person, get some stuff signed, get my cartridge signed?
Yeah. So I'm actually in between the U.S. and France. For the last 8 years, I've been living in France, and that's where I wrote and drew Replay. That's where I wrote the script for Monte Cristo and my other upcoming books, which we haven't talked about, in collaboration with artists over there. Right now, at this moment, I'm in the US for the Replay book release tour. So this isn't actually, this book has been out in France before, but now, as of last week, 2 weeks ago, it's out in English. So yeah, published by, in this hardcover edition. So that, I've been doing book signings. I talked at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, bookstores in Los Angeles. Yesterday, I was here in New York, so I just left some signed copies at Forbidden Planet, and we did a signing at Greenlight Books in Brooklyn. So I've been in the U.S. for the last few weeks, but on Sunday I'm going back to France. So it will be, I think the next time I'll be in the U.S. again will be in the fall.
Excellent. Are you excited to go back home?
Yeah, for me, home is kind of like a little bit of all these places. I'm from New York. I lived in Los Angeles. I lived in San Francisco. Now I'm living in France. And so in all these places, I've got people, who I've worked with, who are close to me. I've got family. So I need to keep traveling in order to keep seeing everybody.
Now, you just teased me over here talking about I got more stuff coming. Talk about that. What are we talking about? What projects other than what we have at present are forthcoming and the Jordan verse over here?
Okay, so my other current project, which is like Monte Cristo, it's a trilogy of French graphic novels that's being published first in French. So English readers will have to wait about a year to be able to read it. But I hope
we made the UK wait for TV shows almost a year, so no problem.
Yeah. I hope we'll do the same thing that we're doing with Magnetic Press for Monte Cristo, that after the 3 volumes are published individually in French, that it will be released as a one-shot complete English graphic novel. So this one is called Liberty, and it's about the American Revolution.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's based on a true historical episode. And for people who are fans of opera, Mozart opera, The Marriage of Figaro was written by a French playwright named Beaumarchais. And, he's from Versailles, Marie Antoinette, Mozart, that era.
Right.
But what people don't know is that he actually created a clandestine company to ship arms, cannons, ammunition, weapons from France to George Washington's army in 1776, right at the beginning of the American Revolution. So when the Declaration of Independence kind of landed, England responded. The King of England sent a huge army, thousands of ships and soldiers to America to basically take New York and crush this rebellion. And the army, George Washington's rebel army, was completely under-equipped, underfunded, and basically that's what they had, the will to fight. They just didn't have gunpowder or cannons. Yeah. So Beaumarchais and an American secret agent named Silas Deane, who was sent over there, really the first American secret agent, was sent by Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson to France and tried to convince the French king to support this rebellion, but the king didn't want to. So Beaumarchais and Silas Deane set up this company and started secretly smuggling the arms on ships across the Atlantic. So it's a true story. It's absolutely true, and it's gripping. And so with the illustrator Etienne Leroux and Loïc Chevalier, who are French, we've done this graphic novel trilogy to tell this story. For now in French, but hopefully soon in English.
All right. So I know you're OG from here. How did you convince those French counterparts here to tell an American history story?
Well, it's really a Franco-American collaboration. I mean, that's what's interesting about it. It's because it combines like the American Revolutionary story, the battles, the Battle of New York, the Battle of Brooklyn. I'm actually here in Fort Greene, where my brother lives, as we mentioned. Hey. There's literally a monument like 2 blocks from here to that Battle of New York that
inspiration
the Americans lost. Yeah. So, I mean, pitching that, but also the fact that it tied into French history, and Beaumarchais, who is, I mean, he's a fascinating character. He was a kind of a secret agent, a playwright, a ladies' man, a watchmaker, and just like sort of an entrepreneur ahead of his time. But because he was such a witty guy who was always like writing satirical things about the nobility, they kept throwing him in prison. So he was kind of an underdog. Like in a way, he was ahead of his time. He was fighting for liberty in his own way, and you see it in his plays, like Figaro. The Barber of Seville. We've all seen the Bugs Bunny version, right? Figaro is a character who's always kind of trying to outwit the powerful lord, the count. And Beaumarchais was doing the same thing in his own life. So I think that aspect appealed to French readers, and also the fact that it's a kind of a secret chapter of history that makes history come alive. Because we all know about Lafayette, he's a character as well. So,
well, Jordy, thank you. Because let me tell you, through Cinebook, I've discovered European comics, and thank you for showing us out here too. And bridging that gap, American and French. I'm digging. I love the journey you're on. I mean, for real, brother. I will be here. Somebody, I think they fainted. Norway is no way, Jordan. Support this project. I'm gonna show you the link again because this is what's going on right now. We have let me check again, see if it went up. We only had 4 hours to go, and we're currently at $81,110. And went up again. Hey, we keep going, baby. Thank you.
Going up as we speak.
Man. That's what we're looking for here. There we go. And Mark says, I've spent a lot of time in France since 1989. Last year was 2 weeks ago in Paris. Was in the agreement to support America in the Civil War. So, look at this.
Wow. Oh, Versailles, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, and Versailles is, oh man, I wish I had a copy here to show you like the beautiful way that Etienne Leroux has depicted Versailles. Like it's cinematic, it's spectacular. So, but we at the website jordanmechner.com are all the projects. So even though Liberty is not yet out in English, there is a tab on my website where people can read about it, can see the artwork, and kind of read about the story like that I just summarized. So Liberty, Monte Cristo, Replay, Prince of Persia, they're all at jordanmechner.com.
Yeah, and the website is below, but it's also in the show notes, folks. I'm making life easy. All right. Just make sure you click away and show love for this amazing and wonderful creator over here. So lastly, before we go today, any words of advice for up and coming creators? I mean, you've been banging it out. You've been in the journey. You just keep doing. There ain't no trying with Jordan. He just do and does and keeps it going and kicking that ass. So talk to us, what words of inspiration do you have for our future creators out there?
I mean, the thing that's so magical about comics as a medium is that if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can do it. Like it doesn't need like a lot of fancy equipment. You don't need a budget. or a highly trained team, you can act like whatever you can imagine, you can put on paper. That's what appealed to me about programming video games back in the 80s when it was just the Apple II, because as a kid, I could make a game that would then, be on a floppy disk and people could play it. Nobody would know that it was made by a kid. So it's the same with comics. Like if, once you've drawn the page, that speaks for itself. You can put it out there. And especially now with the internet, you can put your comics online, share it with people, start sharing it on Instagram or through whatever, platform of choice. And it's a medium for personal expression, and also with the potential, like with the right thing, to reach a large audience. So I love it. Go for it.
And look, Jordan, 81-209 right now. It keeps going. She is
all right.
Long way, but thank you, folks. See, what love, what support from my man Jordan, because he got it. He got it going on. Amazing support from the community for your project. And a big shout out to Magnetic Press. Magnetic Press, check them out. Amazing independent publisher. But also check out my big homie Melissa over at DHPR for your publicity needs if you're a creator. She does an amazing job and definitely helping creators, get the message out there about their projects. So show the love, all right? Big shout out, homie. And for real, Jordan, you've been an amazing guest. I dig your journey. I respect how everything you've done. I can't wait to hopefully be able to meet you one day, whether it's in the West Coast or in Brooklyn somewhere. As we do some things, we're gonna rock out. Yeah, man. I feel well. Magnetic Press does the thing. They do their business. That's what it is. Support independent comics and creation. Support amazing creators like Jordan. My Crusaders. Much love. I appreciate each and every one of you joining us today. All the links are below. Again, just show that support. Much love. All right. Subscribe, turn on notifications. Follow Jordan, but that's the man right there. Where pasa la próxima, mi gente.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.